All right, guys, we'll get started with tonight's webinar. The title of tonight's is How to Maintain Balance During the Season. A lot of people are getting ready to start their seasons in terms of football with at all levels, and thought it would be good to just kind of prepare our minds for what's either started for some or about to start in terms of actually getting into the seasons. Later, when we have any questions, again, go to or just tweet to @ThadWells @CoachDrive, and we'll get those answered at the end. And then if this is your first time watching, again, you can go to CoachDrive.com, click the Get Notified link to get notified of each webinar and any resources we have out there. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about something that we're very passionate about with CoachDrive. You've seen it consistently in terms of balance and time. And just knowing that we have a limited amount of time in life in general, and then when we're talking about the week itself, we only have so many hours to invest, and so how we balance that time is really important. So as we talk tonight, I'd like you to just kind of think about your priorities, your responsibilities in life, not just to your team, but everything else. And know that there's definitely, people that look up to you, that rely on you. And although you may have, a lot of people in your sport that rely on you, there's other people as well. And just remembering those people as we get ready for the season, and making sure that we never take that time that we are always taking that time to think of everyone in our life that really needs us. And that looks up to us. So whatever that is for you, put that in your mind, whether it's your family or any kind of other responsibilities you have. So what we're really talking about tonight, all right, is you must consciously create your coaching lifestyle. So we don't hear this a lot in coaching, the word lifestyle, but and if you read a lot of business books or listen to podcasts regarding business, the term lifestyle comes up more and more. And to me, that's just being aware that we can choose how we live and what we can do with our time. And it's not really made its way into sports and coaching from things that you read inside the game. But if you read outside of coaching, you hear this all the time now. So what we're talking about is setting boundaries. All right. So you want to start with what is important to you. So if you just say, every week you just work with no boundaries and you don't have clear-cut amount of time that you're willing to put in, then everything's just going to kind of blur together. Responsibilities, your teaching responsibilities, your coaching responsibilities, and generally coaching takes up every bit of that. If we don't say, I'm only going to spend X amount of time on this. And so I understand this is a hard concept for a lot of people to get because everybody wants to do so much. But, for us, everything that we create it with a time limit, a time constraint, so that it prevents us from trying to do too much. And we also get to spread our responsibilities or spread our time to our other responsibilities in life. And just realizing you can't do it all. So many coaches just try to do it all. They're afraid of what's going on next door, what the other teams are doing. But you just got to know what matters to your program, what matters to help you guys be successful. You don't have to do it all. Understanding the law of diminishing returns, that if you just grind, eventually the time you're putting in is not going to reflect. The results are not going to reflect the amount of time you're putting in. So I really believe in these things, and just make sure that you understand you can't do it all, and don't be afraid with what's going on down the road at somebody else's on somebody else's team, and even with all the coaches that are working their tails off. When for me, anyways, when I sit and reflect and I look at things, and from what I'm studying, to me, so many coaches do the wrong things anyways. So they'll put all these hours in, but they're not putting the hours into things that actually matter. The best systems will fail with unmotivated people. So all this time's looking at film and looking at all, breaking down all these tendencies and this data and doing all these things, the scout cards, all of that. Yet And then so many coaches fail to realize how important their people are within the systems. And tonight I'm going to be talking a lot about systems. But if you don't understand how important the people are in those systems, then nothing you do to a system really matters. So we're going to get into the actual system part now, but always remembering that the people are what makes these things work. So tonight, kind of talking about lists, systems, procedures, all those things, essentially how we can basically stay sane during the season. How can we stay balanced? How can we commit to other things? And to me, it is our systems that we create. And specifically for us, it's a lot of lists in our procedures. So 3 books that have been huge for me in terms of creating our program and really trying to systemize things. Is Getting Things Done. That one's for really a personal thing for myself, but we incorporate it into our program. And that's somewhat of a to-do list manager, but it's just being able to actually know what you need to do on a given day. To me, every coach in the country should read this, or some book that is like this. Every GA in the country should be doing this. If I was a college coach hiring a GA, this would be one of the first things I would have to do is read this book and understand the concepts in this. And so really it's just, like it says, the art of stress-free productivity. So you're trying to get things done, but you're trying to be able to think and use your brain as well, instead of just doing things all the time or forgetting what to do. So we'll talk about that one, or all these. But then the E-Myth really changed my mind on how to build a program and how the framework for that. And really it's about franchising to a big degree is what this book is about. But it's so reflective of coaching in general, and just another must read to me in terms of anybody that's going to build a program. Then we have the Checklist Manifesto, which was really written for checklists in general, but it's not really a to-do list at all. It's really creating checklists of doing the routine things so that we don't forget the really big things, and then we can use our brains to think about other things once we know we're already completing the things that have to get done. So I'm going to share some quotes from these books, and I'll try not to read them word for word and try to summarize some things, but some really big things to me in terms of building systems, right, and lists. And again, all the reason you're doing this is so that as the week goes on, you're not forgetting what you need to do. You're not waking up every day thinking, okay, what do I need to do now? You already know what to do every week. And so that once you execute these things, you can now use your brain to think about family, to think about the bigger things in your program. So I'm not always reinventing the wheel every week and just trying to remind myself what needs to get done. All right, so go through a few things with getting things done first. So this first quote, like I said, I'll try not to read all these word for word, but some of them are really important. So this book is not so much concerned with getting things done as it is championing appropriate engagement with your world, guiding you to make the best choice of what to do in each moment and to eliminate distraction and stress about what you're not doing. I think this one is so big for coaches, that whole thing at the end there, to eliminate distraction and stress about what you're not doing. So it's trying to make us understand, like, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to be worried that you're not doing something, that you're forgetting something. So if we create these to-do lists, these to-do lists and these checklists, we're going to remember. We don't have to remember. We already have it. We have it down. We're going to just know what needs to get done in what order. On the one hand, we need proven tools that can help people focus their energy strategically and tactically without letting anything fall through the cracks. So that's basically saying, again, like, we don't want to not do something that's really important, making sure we have this however you game plan, or making sure we're thinking about our players, or making sure we're getting the meal for Friday night, or whatever it is, and making sure those things don't fall through. But here, the second part of this, on the other hand, essentially, we need to create thinking habits and working environments that will keep the most caring and engaged people from burning out due to stress. So it's not just doing these mundane routine things. We also need to be creating these thinking habits, as David Allen says, and to keep people from burning out. If I think it was 2 weeks ago, showed that newspaper article about all these coaches burning out because of the stress. And to me, if you were more organized and use these to-do lists for productivity, these things wouldn't really eat at you as much, and you could really have the mindset to help with it. This consistent, unproductive preoccupation with all the things we have to do is the single largest consumer of time and energy. So it's not really just doing things. It's all this time spent trying to remember what to do and try to think what to do. And we can completely eliminate this. And I'll show you it later after I get finished going through some of these quotes. I'll show you how we do these things. But it's not, you don't have to wake up and think, what do I need to do next? It's in a system. It's in a list. It's in a Google document. So essentially, what he does and what this quote is talking about is he organizes, literally collects every single thought he has on what needs to get done. So the book itself really goes through how to do this, and then we're not going to really touch on all that on how exactly. But for me, the way I do it, I essentially have a Google sheet that organizes this for myself, and my email list or my email. I use, again, Google Mail and Inbox as well, but it's all organized with all my email addresses to basically have, a zero inbox, no messages in there is the goal. But everything that comes in through an email or everything I get from somebody else or every piece of paper, everything goes down on this to-do list. Or, all right, the big thing for him, if you can do it in 2 minutes or less, you just do it, knock it out, get it done with, and then you don't have to add it to your list. Or you decide this is not that important. I'm either going to delegate it to somebody else or it's just not going to get done. But like for me, a big one that I do is on my cell phone, I have a contact, which is my email address. So if I'm in anywhere basically except the shower and I have an idea, I'm going to text it to myself so that the next time I sit down at my computer and get on my email or on my phone or whatever, I have that thought to reflect on, and I can either discard it or put it back into or put it onto my to-do list. And so this book goes all through that, how to organize your desk, everything in terms of being productive. I think this is, and for me, I'm more of a creative thinker. So this organization isn't necessarily always innate to me, but as I read this book, the book itself motivated me to get so much done because of the organization. So, but it's essentially capturing everything you think of or need to do so that you don't forget and have to think, oh yeah, I meant to do that. Oh yeah, whatever I forgot, from yesterday when I was thinking. And I mentioned the shower, also having something in the shower you can write with. On Amazon, they have these like notepad things that it's a waterproof, you can write on, take it out with you, and then copy it down. But your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. And that's 100% what I'm trying to do with my mind, just trying to create ideas and then get them down so that I don't have to try to remember those ideas. They're literally done this season. I'll have all these, during the year, I'll have all these random thoughts, and now I'll send them to myself, and then I'll snooze it in my email. So like using Gmail, I'll snooze it so that it'll come back to me at a time. I have things coming to myself later on in this season. For example, like there were some things I thought about in the off season that would be great for a state championship week. Not that we're going to get there, but on the so if we play on the prior Saturday in the semifinal game, Sunday morning, I have emails coming to me of a couple different thoughts that would remind me about things that should be done that week. And again, it's just, trying to prepare yourself. If you have that thought and if it's important enough, you write it down so you can use it later on. This is kind of the flow chart that he has, and it might be a little hard for you to read, but if you just Google getting things done flow chart, I'm sure this will come up. But essentially, you just get stuff that comes in. It gets into an in basket. You have to say what it is. Then you say, is this actionable? So it means, can I do something with it now or not? So then it just kind of goes into all these buckets. And I'm not going to explain all this, but just understanding, like literally all the stuff, the very top of this, everything that comes into you, there's a process for how to deal with that. All right, so now we're going to move on to the E-Myth. All right, so the problem is that everybody who goes into business is actually three people in one: the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. This thought right here, and this book goes into way more detail about it, but this thought right here was so big for myself in understanding how the different pieces to a program. So this book kind of gives an example, and I'll share it with you real quick. So Think about somebody that bakes bread. So they're a baker, right? So they bake bread for this. Let's say this little small town bakery. So he's a baker. He bakes the bread, but he works for somebody that owns the bakery. So he is essentially the technician. He is the doer. So that person is baking bread all day. Then one day, out of the blue, he just decided, you know what? I'm tired of baking bread for this bakery. Now I want to start my own bakery. Think of this as like an offensive coordinator, that he is a technician. He calls the offense. He hasn't thought about how to run a business or how to run a program. And then one day he just decides he wants to go be a head coach. He wants to go open his own bakery. And then he gets there. But the problem is, all he did his whole time is he was a doer. He just knew how to call an offense. He didn't think about all the things, the managing and the entrepreneurial things that go into running a business. So this book really, to me, opens your mind, especially if you're a coordinator wanting to be a head coach one day, in terms of how you should be really learning and what you should be learning, even though you won't be using it that much as a coordinator. So there's a lot bigger ideas in this book as well. The problem is not that the owners of small business in this country don't work. The problem is that they're doing the wrong work. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier with coaches. This book highlights a lot of those things that business owners are doing wrong, and that essentially that carries straight over into coaching. All right, so this is a really long quote, and I won't read the whole thing, but this is so true for coaches. Right. So what if I wanted to do the technical work in my business? What if I don't want to do anything else but that? Then for God's sake, get rid of your business and get rid of it as quickly as you can. Okay. Goes on to basically talk about you can't have it both ways. So if you love calling the offense or love calling the defense, and that's all you want to do, then be a coordinator. You can't just call an offense or call a defense and run a program. There's too much that goes on. This quote goes on to talk about all these other things in a business. There's so many things in running a program. And if all you do is call the one side of the ball, and think about that, then you're not going to be that successful. And this is the first year I've finally been able to not call either side. And so I get to really focus all my time on all the other things that are so important in a program. And not that obviously offensive defense isn't important, but if that's all you want to do, then don't be a head coach. You're not going to be successful. You can't delegate those things, right? You can delegate calling offense and defense, but you can't delegate all the things in running a program. The system runs the business. The people run the system, and the system is important, right? Having good systems is extremely important. That's what this book is all about. But remember, no matter how good your systems are, there are going to be people running those systems. So it's both. It's two-sided. You have to have good people and good systems. Lacking either is just going to result in failure. It is critical that you understand the point I'm about to make. For if you do, neither your business nor your life will ever be the same. So these are pretty powerful words here. The point is, your business is not your life. Your business and your life are two totally separate things. And to me, coaches make this mistake all the time, basically believing that their coaching is their life, and they don't separate the two. You have to separate the two. There is more to your life than simply coaching. For most people anyways, if you have a family or other commitments, there's more to it, and you have to be able to separate it. You have to be able to create boundaries so that they don't run over on each other. Pretend that the business you own or want to own is a prototype, or will be the prototype for 5,000 more just like it. In other words, pretend that you are going to franchise your business. And this is really the whole thing in this book is what this is about, is pretending you're going to create 5,000 teams across the country. How would you do it then? Because that changes all your processes in terms of how you organize things. If you're going to try to replicate this as fast as you can across the country. So essentially franchising a program. That's what we're thinking of when we build our program. It is literally impossible to produce a consistent result in a business that depends on extraordinary people. So this is that might be a tough statement for some people, but you can't just assume you're always going to have the best people in your program. As much as you want it, you have to have good enough systems to realize that you're not always going to have the best people in every phase of the program, in every area of the program. So you got to make sure your systems make up for that. You can't leave room for error. If that person can't handle, the freedom, then they have to go by the system. And, obviously we'd love to have extraordinary people in all the roles, but it's just not the case. So you have to prepare that as if you're not going to. And when you do, it's just that much better. The operations manual, all right, the repository of the documentation is therefore best described as a company's how to do it guide. And when we're talking about systems and checklists and all that, that's what we're talking about. An operations manual that goes over everything you do. You hear a lot of bigger coaches that have their process manual and all those things. And that's essentially what this book shows you how to create. So if you ever wanted to create your own big manual on how to run your program, well, this book gives you step-by-step guides on how to do that for a small business, which is no different than running a team. The problem isn't your business. It never has been. The problem is you. It has always been you and will always be you until you change. This is a huge concept to get into your head, that if there's something wrong with your program, it is you. It is nothing else. It may be something else, right? It may be something else that's causing your problem. But if you accept that as the reason why you're not where you want to be, because the program isn't where it needs to be in your mind, if you accept for a second that it's because of somebody else or something else, then you're stuck. You can't fix that. So you always have to say, or you have to think in your head that if things aren't the way they should be, then it's because of you, because you can change. We can't change everybody else. We can't change everything else around us, but we can change ourselves. And so that gives us the right mentality for fixing things rather than blaming people for other things. So the problem is you. It always has been you and will be. And until you change, nothing's going to change. That may not be true 100%, but that's what you have to believe. The franchisor aims his innovative energies at the way in which his business does business. So when you're creating a program, if you are innovative or you have innovative people, yes, it's fun to do that with scheming and X's and O's and all that, but you need to be innovative and creative in how your business does its business, how your program is ran, all the little things within that. Be creative in those ways. Don't just copy everybody that's out there doing all these things, and every clinic, everybody doing the same things. Just take the time to sit and think about your program. I think of innovation as the best way skill. So essentially, innovation is simply trying to find the best way to do something in your program. Not your way, nobody else's way, just the best way that will help your program, your people advance and become successful. And that, I believe, is the heart of the process. Not efficiency, not effectiveness, not more money, not to downsize or get lean, but to simply and finally create more life for everyone who comes into contact with the business. But most of all, for you, the person who owns it. Life is what a business is about, and life is what this work is about. Coming to grips with oneself is in the face of an incredibly complex world that can teach us if we're open to learn. In this way, the business development process can be thought of as a metaphor for personal transformation, for coming to grips with real life. And that's exactly how we build our program. Our program is essentially treating the game of football, specifically for us, as essentially life and as a transformation tool to help our players and to realize that we're trying to give life to our players. That is literally the language we use. Even before reading this, we understand how much life is involved in our program. And our players investing their time with us, we're going to, in return, give them so much life for their time with us. Imagine that someone will walk through your door with the intention of buying your business, but only if it works, and only if it works without a lot of work and without you to work it. So how about this thought? This is a thought that I kind of think of now in my own head. It is to imagine, let's say, whatever level you are, let's say that some FBS D1 AD is going to walk through your program one day, or some NFL owner or major owner, whatever, like somebody big is going to walk through your program one day. And if they were to, are you going to be happy with what they see? And if you were to just sit on the sidelines and talk to them while they were there, would everything still work without you being involved? That's the goal. Now it takes a long time to get there and a lot of planning and a lot of thinking, but that's the goal we're trying to achieve. That if some big time guy walked in, he would be ready to to invest or purchase your company or your program or you yourself so that you can do that somewhere else. So it's a pretty big thought there if that's how you approach building your program. I believe it's true that the difference between great people and everyone else is that great people create their lives actively, while everyone else is created by their lives passively, waiting to see where life takes them next. This is a huge point that I will talk a lot more about later on. It's what we do with our Win Your Way curriculum. This is what I think is probably the biggest problem in the world, and that's that most people passively live life. And the biggest regret of the dying is that I didn't live life true to myself. Why is that? Because we live passively. We don't sit and think and create our own lives. So the difference between the greatest people in the world, the greatest lives, the most value given to other people is that people actively, consciously think about creating a life rather than passively living. It's not your business you have to fear losing. It's something much bigger than that. It's yourself. And that's what this whole thing is about. So it's not just creating a winning program or helping other people, but if you don't focus on the right things, you could lose yourself in this whole process. Not to mention all the other things that you care about in life, including your kids, your family. Maybe you've already went through that, but I know too many coaches that have lost their kids, have lost their wives because of the consumption of trying to win a game. I would never allow myself again to be consumed by the work of my business. It became obvious to me with a clarity that's almost impossible to describe how big a price I have been paying for being so obsessed with my work. So even this guy, Michael Gerber, had the same issue, just like most, or not most, a lot of business owners, a lot of coaches, and that they get consumed and obsessed with their work and they forget about everything else. If you have good systems, you can avoid these things. Most people today are not getting what they want, not from their jobs, not from their families, not from their religion, not from their government, and most important, not from themselves. Something is missing in most of our lives. Part of what's missing is purpose, values, worthwhile standards against which our lives can be measured. Part of what's missing is a game worth playing. How awesome of language is this for us, right? What's also missing is a sense of relationship. People suffer in isolation from one another. In a world without purpose, without meaningful values, what have we to share but our emptiness, the needy fragments of our superficial selves? I mean, that is very powerful to think about what games and sports and our programs can really mean. All right, to create values for people, and that whole thing just a minute ago, talking about how people live passively. They never declare their values. They never find their purpose. They never decide what is worthwhile to them in life. They never basically find a game worth playing. And so, are you creating a program that makes the game worth playing, or are you just playing to win a game? Challenge you to think about that. Is your program creating a game worth everyone involved playing? What most people need then is a place of community that is purpose, order, and meaning. So does your program, aka your community, have purpose, order, and meaning? We can only change our lives and create a world of our own if we first understand how such a world is constructed, how it works, and the rules of the game. And that means we have to study the world and how we are in it. And in order to do that, we need a world small enough in scope and complexity to study. And so, again, this is such an awesome quote that it's called First Principles. If you study Charlie Munger or any of those things that I've talked about in the past, First Principles. So you have to study the world. And the problem is that the world is so big and so vast, we can't study everything about it. So we've got to find a world that is small enough in scope and complexity so that we can study it. And what's so cool is that our sports are kind of those things. If we just use those things that we love as truly trying to add value to somebody's life and teach them life lessons, you can teach life lessons with almost anything in the world. And so whatever you're passionate about, which for most of us is coaching, so we're passionate about that, we can turn our game, a game worth playing, right? A life worth living. We can turn all of this into such a powerful thing if we take the time to first understand how such a world is constructed, right? You have to try to understand it first. All right, so just a couple here from the Checklist Manifesto. Again, a really good book in terms of creating all these things I'm going to talk about here in a second. But for checklists to help achieve that balance, they have to take two almost opposing forms. They supply a set of checks to ensure that stupid but critical stuff is not overlooked. And they supply another set of checks to ensure people talk and coordinate and accept responsibility while nonetheless being left to the power to manage the nuances and unpredictabilities the best they know how. So essentially, there's two types of checklists that they talk about in this. One checklist to get the mundane things out of the way, right? What do I need to do on Monday? What do I need to do on Tuesday? What do I need to do on Wednesday? What do I have to do on game day? What do I have to do to get the meals prepared? All those things, creating these checklists for them. Heck, I've gotten to the point where I don't even want to think about because I forget half the time, what I need to take with myself to the field. I have a little note card sitting on my desk or beside my desk that reminds me essentially of the little things like whistle, practice schedule, all those things, because I get so excited and ready to go that I'll literally have to run back in 2 or 3 times if I don't sit there and look at that thing. But yeah, it's as little as that. But then you have checklists for communication. So all those things that are popping up that you didn't think about, you need to make sure you're communicating with people. Multiple fields have become too much airplane for one person to fly. So pilots of the Atul Gawande spent a lot of time studying pilots for the checklist and the medical field as well. But pilots have these checklists essentially to help them fly and make sure they're not making mistakes that could end in tragedy. And so basically, a lot of things in life have become too much for us to do, either for one person or for one brain, to make sure we get it done. So that's why checklists help us to not forget the little things. The checklist gets the mundane stuff out of the way, the routines your brain shouldn't have to occupy itself with, and lets it rise above the focus on the hard stuff. So essentially, it's getting all those little things out of the way so you can use your brain for more meaningful things throughout the day. And those things are, okay, so you're creating our list. Why are we creating these? So you can free your mind to be present, and so you can free your mind to think. So those are almost two opposite things here. So once I've freed my mind, I either need to be present. So that means I need to be aware of the people around me. I need to be talking to the people and listening to the people around me, maybe my family or coaches or players or administration or whoever, right? So I'm not thinking, I need to do this. I need to do that. I got to do that. You can just be at peace and think, okay, everything's in place. Everything's good. I can be present. Or everything's good, but now I get the free time to think more in depth about the bigger things in my program. So I'm not, again, things aren't popping into my head like, I forgot. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to tell this person this or that. So it's just trying to free your mind so you can use it and decide what to do with it. So here are some of the lists that we create in our program. Okay. So first, my GTD list. So that's getting things done. So that's using the book almost exactly what it talks about. And I have my list, and it has things for personal. So things I got to get done for myself and for life in general. Then it has things for my family that need to be done. It has things for my program that need to be done. It has things for just personal growth that needs to get done. It has everything that I'm thinking of, and it's like things I may not have. Then essentially, like if you read the book, there's like a waiting list to a degree of things you don't need done right now, but maybe once you get your list down, you got some free time you can look at it. So, it goes on and on. So my list has a lot of things on it, but I know I'm in no hurry to do those things. Right? You're never going to have a blank list. It's never going to be zero, because you're always going to have new things to do and more things to add. So that's one thing, you got to prepare your mind for that, so you don't get overwhelmed by the list once you create it. So then we have our yearly list. So essentially all the things that need to get done on a yearly basis, we break that down by months. So, and this is a lot of our off-season stuff. So we know what we need to get done every month, and then every week and every day, essentially. Then we have our weekly list. And this is what I'm talking about. This is our in-season list. So what needs to literally day by day. So at the end of our game on Friday night, we then I spend time thinking what needs to be done from the last whistle to the opening kickoff the next week. And so we literally write down everything that needs to get done. A lot of the things get delegated, broken down to who does what. And then every morning I wake up and I check it. And then as I do things, I basically mark it off that it's done. And then I just keep going through the next thing, and then Tuesday's list, and then Wednesday's list, and just making sure that I'm doing the things that need to get done week in and week out. And so once I get those things knocked off, then I know I'm free for the day. If I don't do anything else for our program, I'm good. right? If I've got free time at work, then I'll use it to think about our program. And then when I come home, I don't have to worry about anything because I know I'm on top of everything. Everything's good. I don't have to stress out that I haven't done anything. I don't need to do anything extra. And that's a big part. Once you do the things on your list, don't sit there and add things. Just be confident in what you've decided to do. We have our scout list. So this is like a specific list within our daily things in our weeks, right? So like on the weekends, our coaches have the scout list of what they need to break things down, and or what they need to write down, and whether it's in huddle or whatever, we use this Google sheet, the scout list, for what everybody has to do. And then we have a game plan list. So taking that scout report that we basically create and the way we game plan, which I've talked about before, is a little different, but we use this to game plan and basically knock these things out. And it doesn't have to be done on the weekend. We don't meet on the weekends, right? Like I've got another video, I think 2 weeks ago about that. We don't meet on the weekends. We don't even practice on Mondays. But we have our things that we're doing on our game plan to do. Then we have our game day itineraries. So that's a list that needs everything that needs to get done on game day. That I basically print off and have with me all day. So I make sure we're staying on task, and I give it to another coach to help me stay on task as well. And everybody has their own, delegated task on game day itself. So I'm big on itineraries and make sure we're on time for everything. And then our delegation list. So like just our list in general of what everybody does throughout the week. So it's a little different than our weekly list, but who has laundry on Monday, who helps paint the practice field, all those little things, which a lot of coaches do that, right? But how detailed are you getting with everything? So my challenge for you, if you're just getting started with this, you might not have enough time to read these books, obviously, before the season starts, but document this season, right? So you could start creating these lists now, even though they might not be perfect for week one, but start writing down all the things you do so that after the season or during the season, you can start to create your own checklists and your own procedures. And so you're not forgetting it this time next season, or if you are able to start working on this for, by week 4 or 5, you may be good on your list of things to do, but start documenting it this season. One of the things I do now is I have a post-game journal essentially to reflect on, so that I'm thinking about my decisions made during the game and talking to other coaches I know of and their decisions, so we can eliminate bad decisions and get better at. Nick Saban, I think, does something like this before games and walks through things with the coaches. That's something we're looking at too, but something, kind of doing something similar after the game to just really try to make better decisions. So like, again, if you don't have time to do this is something we shared a couple weeks ago at coachtribe.com/process. You can get access to literally this exact process that I'm building right now at our new school. So what we do on a day in, day out basis. In the off season, it's going to include the off season things. But right now it's literally being updated as we speak of what we do on a daily basis, how we game plan, the scout breakdown, all those things are being added this week. If you'd like to get that, you don't have the time. If you want to keep a little sanity this year, stay balanced, help your family get what they deserve of you, and you don't have time to create your own, then you can just use ours this year and then tweak it to fit you. And you can get that at coachtribe.com/process. And I think there's a link in the actual YouTube thing below that you can click on to go to there. All right. Like I said, again, if you haven't signed up, sign up. Go to coachtribe.com/ and click on get notified to get all our resources. Next week, have a little interesting one for you. And the title might throw you off a little bit, but you'll have to come back next week to see what it really means. So are you investing too much in your players? So what we talk about all the time. So that title might throw you off a little bit there. But so think about that. Are you investing too much in your players? All right. Well, we'll see what that really means next week. So if you have any questions from tonight, feel free to hop on and tweet them, and then we'll do our best to get to those. All right, so I've got a couple questions right now. So do you have one master checklist, or do you have several going on at once? So my GTD list, so if you come up to this, my GTD list essentially has everything that I have to do. So I have one master list of everything that me as a head coach has to get done, All right. And then these other lists are basically just a template, just a checklist that needs to get done. So really my GTD list is a to-do list. These other lists are checklists. So basically if it's a daily checklist for, like, let's say Monday, then I'll add the to-do things that I have to do. I'll add that to my GTD list, so my to-do list. And then when they're done, I'll go back to the weekly, or that, whatever it was that day, and mark that off. So yes, I do have a master checklist. GTD kind of suggests some other things, this and that, but I found for me anyways, I just wanted everything on one sheet. So I've got my football stuff, I've got my family stuff, and basically I move it around. So I have it's a Google sheet. So I drag and drop things on what is important at the time. So I'll put number 1, number 2, number 3, what needs to get done in order. And I color coded as well. I think again, I think I can probably bring this up for you real quick. So you can see I have my GTD of different things, but this is my all list. You can see that, I think, if it's up there for you. So like I've got a different color codes, different things that I'm doing right now. You can see how long this list is. All the colors mean something different for myself. But yes, so I do have one master list for everything. So how do you prioritize what needs to be done? So I do try to, like I said, I try to prioritize everything. Maybe my top things for the day are generally ordered in the order that needs to be done. But then once I start to get to like number, 5, 6, 7 on down through there, all the way through like 70, 80 things I have to get done. A lot of things done at the bottom may never get done. I'll end up deleting those when I do a review of that. That's one thing in the GTD. You want to do a weekly review, a quarterly review, yearly review, and just kind of purge things and get rid of them. But I do try to prioritize things, especially during the season. It has to, what needs to be done today. That's what gets priority. But if, let's say, something is important with my family and it has to get done that day, then it may bump out, whatever needs to be done for as a coach. So I do prioritize it. Basically just drag and drop things to put them in front of each other and that's the kind of the order that I do them. So do you challenge your basically do you get your coaches to do this and check the checklist itself? Do they turn anything in? So for our coaches, essentially, like, these checklists it's all, like I said, it's all done in Google. So it's all shared with our coaches. So everybody has access to it. Each coach will have their piece they need to do and fill in, especially things like our scout list. So this checklist, our scout team thing, essentially it's not a scout team, like the films of the team, our opponents, like each coach has their thing to do and they fill out their part of that checklist. So it's their name is on that and that's what they do. And so there are, like, definitely we try to make sure that our coaches, and I definitely want to spend more time educating our coaches themselves on the GTD, on getting to know that, and just one, so that them, having a new staff that we can get together. We've read a couple books together, or from at the beginning of this summer, but GTD isn't something we've gotten to yet, but will be, as time goes on. And then basically, how much time is invested in this. So like I said, for me, I wake up in the morning early and do things. I don't look at this list when I wake up. I don't check email when I wake up, or get on social media or read the news or anything like that. Basically, I wake up and read and exercise and try to just prime for the day and get ready for the day and get my mindset right. And then this is usually one of the first things I do once I'm done with my morning routine, and this is part of the routine, I guess, but one of the first things I do is get to this and seeing what needs to get done, what needs to be added to it, and just getting it set up. It's honestly, you do it in the morning. It might take 10 minutes to get it together, make sure it's looking good. Some days you don't have to add anything. Like in the off season, sometimes it's not that time consuming, but then then at night, a good thing to do is to quickly review to just kind of see where you are, so that you can also just kind of put your mind at rest when you go to bed, knowing that, okay, I'm good. Everything's in place. I know what I got to get it done tomorrow. And sometimes when your list gets long, it can be overwhelming. I get it. Like no matter how organized you are, if you got a lot of things you got to get done tomorrow, sometimes it starts to get overwhelming. But just trusting yourself that you can get it done. And if you can't, you just got to delete some things, right? Or move them to another day. And if they don't get done, they don't get done. And you just got to do what's most important. You only have so many hours. You got to maintain your commitment to everything else in life. But one of the big things in organizing your day and your routine and your list is delegation. So if you're in a position to delegate, think about what can be delegated. This is something, I forget all the time. You got all these things on a list. You're like, oh, wow, like I've got people that want to work and want to do things. Let me get this stuff out to other people as well. So, it's just like for us, like we delegate a lot to our players. This week, we did our Pride Point system finale for the summer and gave out jobs. So all of our players have some type of job, whether it's carrying equipment out or cleaning tables after team meals or cleaning locker rooms or collecting risk coaches or scout team risk coaches or cleaning the weight room. Literally, we have about 130 kids on the team. So we have 130 jobs that kids have to do. And everybody has their own little thing to do. And that kind of lightens the load for a lot of things we do in our program. So if you're doing things you don't think you should be doing, you got a lot of football or players in general, whatever you coach, get a lot of things that a lot of resources to help you delegate and save time. But so I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Just take the time to plan and organize. If you only have time to read one book for the season, if you want to keep your sanity, I would suggest getting things done. It's really, pretty quick read. It wasn't too long. Maybe the other books you could read in the off season. But if you just followed what we talked about today, you could have a more stress-free season. You can stay balanced. You can think about those that need you, not just the team, everything else in life. And for everybody getting ready to start, good luck and keep your head and don't get frustrated and don't get overwhelmed. Just know you can only do what you can do, right? You only have so much time, so many resources in life. Do what you can, do it to the best of your ability, and then make sure you're saving time for other things that matter. So again, next week we'll get to talking about how much time you're investing in your players.